Hello and welcome to Firstpost Live, where we bring you the day's top 4 stories from across the world. I'm Joshua Barnes, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the headlines. Tensions are rising in Minneapolis after a US federal immigration officer shot a Venezuelan man during a traffic stop following a reported struggle. The incident comes a week after an ICE agent fatally shot a 37-year-old American woman. China's top diplomat calls Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's visit to Beijing a turning point. This is the first visit by a Canadian leader to Beijing in 8 years, amid strained relations between the two countries. Nepal's oldest political party, Nepali Congress, splits ahead of general elections in March. The rupture adds to the country's turbulent political environment. A popular holiday destination in Victoria, Australia is hit by flash floods following heavy thunderstorms and torrential rains. Cars were swept into the sea as authorities urged residents to stay away from floodwaters. And Novak Djokovic and two-time defending champion Jannik Sinner are in the same half of the Australian Open draw. Madison Keys faces a tough path to defend her title in the women's draw. We begin today in Iran, where uncertainty continues to grip the country amid mass protests, a deadly crackdown, and rising international alarm. In the latest, US President Donald Trump claimed that Iran has halted planned executions of the protesters, meaning 26-year-old Erfan Soltani, the first protester reportedly sentenced to death for his role in ongoing demonstrations, will not be executed.
We have been informed by very important sources on the other side, and they've said the killing has stopped and the executions won't take place. There was supposed to be a lot of executions today, and that the executions won't take place. And we're going to find out. I mean, I'll find out after this. You'll find out. But we've been told on good authority, and I hope it's true. Who knows, right? Who knows?
We've
Crazy
seen the body
world.
bags, so how do you trust
No,
them?
you've seen that over the last few days, and they said people were shooting at them with guns and they were shooting back, and it's one of those things. But they told me that there'll be no executions, and so I hope that's true.
Trump suggested the United States would now wait and watch, stopping short of ruling out military action against the Iranian regime. Trump's remarks appeared to ease immediate fears of escalation. Oil prices fell sharply in early trading on Thursday, reflecting reduced anxiety over a potential supply shock. Iran accounts for roughly 3% of global oil production, but Tehran's response has been cautious and defiant. Iran's foreign minister confirmed there would be no hanging for the time being and accused Israel of orchestrating violence.
No, I haven't heard about that, and there is no any hanging today or tomorrow or whatever. That's
Friday?
I can tell you, I'm confident about that. There is no plan for hanging at all.
Well, Iran has also warned it will respond to any US attack, pointing to last year's strike on an American airbase in Qatar as proof of its capability. Tehran continues to insist that the regime is in full control, but rights groups paint a very different picture. Iran Human Rights, based in Norway, says over 3,400 protesters have been killed. They say the Iranian authorities have arrested more than 10,000 people so far. The country continues to be under an internet blackout, but despite that, verified videos have still emerged. They show bodies lined up in morgues as families search for missing relatives. The state prosecutors have also announced fast-track trials against protesters, with some detainees facing capital charges of what Tehran calls waging war against God. In the West, the G7 has warned of further sanctions, describing an unprecedented level of brutality. The UN Security Council is set to meet for an emergency briefing at Washington's request. The fallout of protests in Iran is now directly affecting India. New Delhi has advised all Indian nationals to leave Iran immediately as the security situation worsens. Around 10,000 Indians, including students, pilgrims and business people, are currently in the country.
In view of the evolving situation in Iran,
Indian nationals who are currently in Iran, including students, pilgrims, business persons, and tourists, are advised to leave Iran by available means of transport, including commercial flights.
And earlier today, Iran reopened its airspace after temporary closure, which triggered flight chaos in the region. Indian carriers such as Air India, IndiGo and SpiceJet report delays, diversions and cancellations. Airlines say passengers are being rerouted, rebooked or refunded. Aviation risk monitors warn most global airlines are now avoiding Iranian airspace amid fears of military escalation and risks to civilian aircraft. The situation in Iran remains volatile. Trump says the killings have stopped. Tehran says executions are off for now, but rights groups warn that the crackdown is far from over. Moving on. Yesterday, officials from Denmark and Greenland walked into the White House hoping for clarity. They walked out with confirmation the United States has not dropped its demands on Greenland. After meeting President Trump's team in Washington, the Danish and Greenlandic foreign ministers described the talks as constructive, diplomatic and civil. But behind those niceties, the disagreement was unmistakable. They said Greenland's territorial integrity is a red line. Denmark's foreign minister was blunt. He said it was absolutely not necessary for the United States to seize Greenland. And yet, he admitted they failed to change the American position. According to him, Trump still wants Greenland, and Denmark made it clear that is not in the interest of the Danish kingdom.
We didn't manage to change the American position. It's clear that the president has this wish of conquering over Greenland. We made it very, very clear that this is not in the interest of the kingdom. There's a government in Greenland with support from 3/4 of the Greenlandic population. The premier made it very, very clear yesterday that Greenland, for the time being and for foreseeable future, will remain within the kingdom of Denmark.
While the talks brought together Denmark, Greenland and top American officials, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Vice President J.D. Vance were the hosts. The meeting ended after nearly an hour, but there was no breakthrough or retreat. What they did agree on was the process. A working group will now be formed. Its tasks would be to address American security concerns without crossing Denmark's red lines.
We have decided to form a high-level working group to explore if we can find a common way forward. The group, in our view, should focus on how to address the American security concerns, while at the same time respecting the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark. We expect that such a group will meet for a first time within a matter of weeks.
President Trump, meanwhile, remains unmoved. He says the United States needs Greenland for national security, that European promise are not enough, and that something eventually will work out. From the Oval Office, Trump went further. He said Greenland is vital, not just for US security, but for Denmark's as well. And that Denmark, in his view, cannot protect it if Russia or China decides to act.
Well, we're going to see what happens with Greenland. We need Greenland for national security, so we're going to see what happens. They're going to brief me on the meeting right after this conference. In fact, the sooner I get you out, the faster I'm going to know exactly what happened. But we have a very good relationship with Denmark, as you know. We'll see. But, we're doing the Golden Dome. We're doing a lot of things, and we really need it. If we don't go in, Russia's going to go in, and China's going to go in. And there's not a thing that Denmark can do about it, but we can do everything about it.
But Europe is pushing back. France, Germany and Norway have pledged troops to a Denmark-led multinational force. They plan a stronger military presence in and around Greenland, with NATO allies involved. The message is unmistakable. Greenland is not undefended, and it is not alone.
Now we are going to have a larger military footprint, and we are doing so because we believe it is the right thing to do. Also in relation to the need to have a greater degree of presence together with other NATO allies. This is also something that we have discussed continuously in NATO over the past 2 years, where I myself have strongly argued that NATO needs to take a greater interest in security to become a part of the NATO framework.
NATO countries often train together. The Arctic has seen years of joint exercises. The US already has around 150 troops at its Bidefik space base in Greenland. But timing matters, and symbolism more so. This show of unity comes at a moment of deep strain inside NATO, because for the first time in decades, Europe is confronting an unthinkable question. What happens when NATO's most powerful member talks about annexing the territory of another? Greenland is no longer just ice and geography, or a mere island. It is power, security and sovereignty. And how this standoff ends could redefine alliances that have held for generations. Let's turn to the UK now. A disturbing incident from London has sparked national outrage and renewed debate around grooming gangs in the United Kingdom. Nearly 200 men and women from the Sikh community gathered outside a council flat in Hounslow on Sunday night, claiming that a 34-year-old Pakistani man had been grooming a 16-year-old Sikh schoolgirl. The girl's distressed parents had sought help from a Gurdwara in Slough after she left home to live with the man. Protesters said the teenager had been in contact with him since she was around 14 or 15 years old. She was gradually isolated from her family, reportedly using manipulative tactics commonly associated with grooming cases. By the time the girl turned 16, she was allegedly convinced to leave her family home and was being held in a flat in the Hounslow area. Members of the Sikh community were heard chanting slogans demanding action and alleging that authorities had failed to respond despite repeated complaints from the victim's family. Some questioned why such incidents continue and accused police of ignoring warning signs. Dramatic footage from the scene shows hours of protests before police finally intervened. Eventually, a man in his late 30s was taken into custody and the teenager was safely reunited with her family. The video of the rescue quickly went viral, fueling widespread anger and questions about law enforcement response times. Now, community groups say this case is not an isolated incident. UK-based Sikh organisations have warned about vulnerable girls being targeted through manipulation. For years, the United Kingdom has been grappling with a series of grooming gang cases involving groups of men who targeted vulnerable children for sexual exploitation. These cases have become one of the most politically sensitive issues in the country, with multiple reviews finding that authorities often failed to intervene, partly because of fears of being accused of racism. In response to these events, the UK government had ordered a national statutory inquiry into group-based child exploitation to better understand the scale of the problem. British police will be required to record the ethnicity of groups involved in organised child sexual abuse.
And earlier this year, I also commissioned Baroness Louise Casey to undertake a rapid national audit of the nature, scale and characteristics of gang-based exploitation. I specifically asked her to look at the issue of ethnicity and the cultural and social drivers for this type of offending, analysis that had never previously been done, despite years of concerns being raised.
Now, the government say an audit found overrepresentation among suspects of Asian and Pakistani heritage men, targeting minors across the United Kingdom.
In the local data that the audit examined from 3 police forces, they identified clear evidence of overrepresentation among suspects of Asian and Pakistani heritage men, and she refers to examples of organisations avoiding the topic altogether for fear of appearing racist or raising community tensions.
Earlier in October last year, a Manchester court sentenced 7 men aged 12 to 35 for the systematic sexual abuse of 2 teenage girls. The abuse took place in Rochdale, Northern England, between 2001 and 2006. Now, for many across the UK, the Hounslow case represents a breaking point. They say protecting children should never be delayed by fear, politics or bureaucracy. The question now is whether this incident will lead to faster action, stronger laws and real accountability. And our last story is from Africa. Uganda is going to the polls today. The voting began after a delay. The situation on the ground remains tense. Police have cracked down on the opposition. There is a heavy security deployment in the capital, Kampala, and the internet has been cut to millions of people. And at times like these, when people feel that their freedom of speech is being curtailed, they look for alternatives. And for Ugandans, that alternative has been BitChat. It is an offline messaging app launched by Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey. The app does not require an internet connection. No login via phone number or email ID is needed. All people need to do is switch on the Bluetooth and use the app. And this is how it works. A message from one user uses another person's phone as a stepping stone to hop the text along until it reaches the destination. BitChat is not as famous as X, WhatsApp or Apple's iMessage, but for millions of Ugandans cut off from the internet, it has become a key lifeline. Even Iranians have turned to BitChat amid deadly nationwide protests. BitChat has surged to the top of Apple and Google app stores in Uganda. In January alone, the app has registered more than 28,000 downloads. This is 4 times more than the past 2 months combined. Last month, opposition leader Bobi Wine endorsed the app. The singer-turned-politician is the only significant opposition leader contesting the polls. Others have been jailed or sidelined as President Yoweri Museveni seeks a 7th term. In a post on X, Wine asked Ugandans if they had downloaded BitChat yet. Wine also warned about the government's plan to shut down the internet in the run-up to the polls. And that is exactly what happened. But earlier, the government denied having any plans of cutting internet access. Then, just days before the polls, an internet blackout was imposed. And what was the government's justification? Authorities said that the shutdown was necessary to prevent the spread of misinformation and incitement to violence. Museveni's government has also banned live streaming of what it calls riots and unlawful processions. A local newspaper even ran a full-page spread advising citizens of how they can election-proof their homes by reinforcing doors and windows and designating a safe room in case of unrest. The country has been on edge in the run-up to the polls. There's been a history of controversy in Ugandan elections. Polls have been marred by violence and police brutality. Thousands of Wine supporters have been arrested. Police fired live bullets and tear gas at his campaign events. This is quite similar to what happened in 2021 when Wine first contested against Museveni. But Wine has refused to back down. He has called the election a war and Museveni a military dictator.
We have said it many times that if General Museveni rigs the election, we shall call for protests. I know that General Museveni's government responds to everything with violence. They respond to protests with violence. That's what they did in 2020, 18th and 19th of November. But I also know that even violent regimes get thrown out by protests.
Wine is popular among young people and confident of winning the polls. However, chances of him winning the elections remain slim. Museveni's grip over the country is firm. He has scrapped the term and age limits and is most likely to extend his 4-decade rule. This remains a developing story and we will keep bringing you all of the latest updates. But for now, that's all we have time for, and we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thanks until then.